So this game came out very soon after the previous game in the series, but what's strange is that according to my memories there was a large gap between the first game and the second game, and it seems only natural that there would have been a sequel, but even still I was kind of caught by surprise by it, I suppose. I don't know. But I am talking about Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back. And so this is obviously the sequel to the original Crash Bandicoot, and this game follows a rather different format than what the original Crash Bandicoot game did, but this one introduced a few new concepts that would stick with the series and what would become a symbol of the series. And so pretty much everything from the first Crash Bandicoot game still applies. You still have levels that are 3D, with some of them being focused on moving left and right, some of them being more focused on moving from the bottom to the top, where you basically run upwards through corridors, and you've also got the run away from boulder levels and all that. What's funny is that this game starts with Crash and Coco on the beach, or actually I think they're just in the middle of the jungle, and Coco asks Crash to get a battery for her because her laptop battery has died. And I remember pressing the start button and it shows you kind of like this menu with a bit of a display on what you have collected and what you have done. And I remember seeing the little coloured gems and thinking that they represented batteries that you had to find. But you walk forward a bit and you get warped to the warp room, and basically this time Neo Cortex realizes that he could utilize the power of the crystals to power up his blimp, I suppose, the laser thing, to destroy the world or something like that. Of course he has very cartoonish goals such as world domination. And so you have the first warp room and you have a set of 5 levels, and the way that it works is that each set of 5 levels you can complete them in any order that you want, but once you've completed them you will then progress to the second warp room, and on the way there you'll fight a boss, and there you'll have another set of 5 levels. And so it's not like the first Crash where you have to do everything in a strict specific order, but you do have to complete each of the warp rooms in order. And Cortex basically asks you to get the crystals for him. I don't remember if Crash has any motivation or if he's just an idiot and he just goes ahead and does it anyway, but yeah, you basically take his word for it and you collect all the crystals in each level and then you go up to the next warp room. Crystals are always out in the open. It's very rare that you'll actually have to go and search for the crystal, which makes me question why they even bothered having the crystal as a part of a level and not just something that you've got at the end of the level. But each warp room kind of has its own theme, so the first theme for the first warp room is like this ruin theme, and so each level you will start and you will end with this warp room architecture. And this is where the whole thing about the gems became clear to me, because if I recall correctly, when I first played Crash Bandicoot 1 I didn't know anything about the gems, and it wasn't until playing Crash 2 that I actually knew about the gems. And so each level can have 1 or more gems, and there's always a gem for collecting all of the boxes by smashing all of the boxes, and at the end there's a counter that says you've got so many out of so many, and if you have all of them then you can pick up the gem, otherwise you can't. But you will also have the coloured gem platforms, where if you have the coloured gem then that will take you to an extra area in a level, and that extra area could lead you to another secret gem, or it could just lead you to more boxes that you'll need to be able to get the box gem for that level. And that is exactly the same as it was in the first Crash. But I really think that this game has a nice sense of curiosity about it, and this is something that I've always loved about this game and something that I always praise it really highly for. And what I mean by that is that there are a lot of secret areas that you can go to which will allow you to get the coloured gems, because in this game you don't get the coloured gems just by smashing the boxes in that particular level. You actually have to find it through some other means. And what's interesting is that there is a secret warp room, and the secret warp room will allow you to access other levels by entering them through other paths, which will lead you to a special gem or a coloured gem or something like that. But also there's a few extra levels in this secret warp room as well, which I also really like. But what I mean by it helps with your sense of curiosity is that sometimes you'll see things that seem to not make sense and you'll start to question whether or not you can do something, and I believe I mentioned this with Mario Sunshine as well. So for example, in one of the watery, rivery levels, there are parts where you will step onto this jet skis sort of thing, and that will allow you to go across the water. But also there are platforms that really serve no purpose to jump across, but you might see a platform just there by itself, and you might start asking yourself, can I jump on that platform? Can I land on that platform? And this did happen to me actually, where I saw a platform and I thought, if I jump on these boxes, I could land on that platform, thinking, there's probably no point of landing on that platform, but I think I can do it. It looks like I can. And so I did that thinking, oh, this is just an innocent little test that I am setting myself. But it turns out that by doing that, what ended up happening was I sent myself to the secret warp room, which allowed me to get some of the coloured gems, or maybe it was just a other gem or something, I don't remember exactly. And so the coloured gems do imbue the sense of curiosity onto you, and whilst it is a simple game and it doesn't have loads of depth or strategy or anything like that, I still rank this really highly because of the experiences that I had with this game were very, very positive. And if someone's going to say recommend me a 3D platformer, this is one that I would point to. This is a game that when I heard about it and I heard about what it was, I was excited. And this was a game that I knew I was definitely going to play on the console that it's on when I got the console. Now, I didn't actually need to get this game myself at all, because what happened was my brother had the game, and so I borrowed it from him, and during that time I went and completed the game fully 100%, so I didn't really need to go ahead and buy it, but I certainly did have a lot of fun with this game. Dragon Quest Heroes, The World Trees War and The Blight Below. People say that's a stupid name. I really like the name. But the idea behind this game is that it's meant to be like a mix of the Dynasty Warriors series and the Dragon Quest series, where it uses the gameplay of Dynasty Warriors, where, you know, you are a character and you can run around and kill loads and loads of enemies. But also, you have the Dragon Quest flavouring behind it all, and so everything is basically themed off Dragon Quest things. So the monsters are all Dragon Quest themed, and things such as saving at a church and the different spell names are all Dragon Quest themed as well. But yeah, I really did get into this game, and I had a lot of fun with this game. So you have two main characters, Lucius and Aurora, and you also have Doric, who is story-wise related to these two characters. But along the way you'll get new party members, and these party members that you'll get are from different Dragon Quest games. So for example, you'll have Terry and Yangus and Jessica and Kirill and Bianca, all from different Dragon Quest games. And they all come with their own particular fighting style, but the core mechanics across all of the characters are basically the same, even though their stats are different. So you'll have some characters that are more magic based, and you'll have some with pure strength abilities and all that. Generally speaking, you'll have a linear set of levels that you will have to go through in order to progress with the story, but also you'll be given side quests where you can go to other areas and take on certain quests, which will allow you to unlock things, whether that be weapons or larger inventory space for your healing stones, and well, all sorts really. But I think the main thing that they use to make this game stand out is the fact that it has a monster capturing mechanic. So when you defeat enemies, they will drop a coin, and not always of course, but sometimes they'll drop a coin, and the coin will take up so much of this coin inventory space that you can also increase throughout the game as you progress. And you can place these monsters down to patrol certain areas for you to help kill off some enemies for you, or they may be the other variation where they'll just appear and do their thing and then disappear, and this can be things like putting the enemies to sleep or healing you, or all sorts of different things. And the more that you play, the more features that you unlock, which is also really nice. For example, you will have mini medals that you can collect, and you can collect these by unlocking trophies for one, or you can also get them by defeating so many types of enemies, and you can spend these on different types of unique items and weapons and all that lot. There is also a sort of alchemy element to this game, where the different pieces of equipment will have extra abilities added onto them, like extra effects. Like this particular item, whilst it does increase your strength by 3, this particular variation of the item also has the ability to increase your money intake by so much percent. And you can fuse items together through this alchemy pot, and they will have a probability of melding these different bonus abilities together, so you can upgrade your equipment by piling on multiple layers of these extra added effects. And so it's really, really nice to do that. The other thing I want to mention is the leveling system, because as you would expect, it's a normal leveling system. Like you kill enemies, you get experience, and you level up. What makes this game interesting though with the leveling system is that when you level up, you get so many skill points, and you can spend those skill points to learn certain abilities for that character. That may include upgrades for magic attacks, or it might just include passive abilities or stat boosts, but once you reach a certain threshold, the amount of skill points that you get per level drastically drops. And so what you set up earlier in the game has a bigger impact than what you can get later, because the amount that you can get later really slows down. Now, once you've completed the main story, what you can do is you can start a new game plus, which will restart the story, but it will carry over all of your things, or at least a lot of your things, and it will also grant all of your characters a large amount of bonus skill points. I think it's 50 points. And so you can activate this New Game Plus feature at any time after you defeated the final boss, but it's sort of like this strategic thing where you have to choose whether you want to continue on or whether you want to activate a New Game Plus. And remember that once you've hit a certain level, the amount of SP that you gain is like 1 a level or something, whereas before it used to be like 7. And so by restarting with this New Game Plus, you are getting a whole bunch of skill points for doing this. I think if you want to max out all of your characters, you will have to get every character to level 99 and start a New Game Plus twice, which I didn't. I started a New Game Plus once, but even then I still had the stats to be able to beat all of the extra super bosses and all that. And even then, the super bosses are still a lot of fun, trying to match up the correct equipment and pile on all of the corresponding abilities to really try to get a particular playstyle down so that you can then take on these super bosses, and I had a lot of fun with it. I was very happy to get this game because I kind of doubted that this game actually existed when I heard about it, but I had previously played the original game in this series, in this very short series, and had an absolute blast with it. And my friend Matthew, he told me about this game and he said certain things about how it was presented and stuff, and he was saying also that his copy, I think, was like a copied NTSC version, so he could only play it in black and white. But he told me about it, and I was really, honestly, really, really skeptical about this because I just seemed to not think he was speaking the truth. There was something in me that was telling me he's lying about this. This game doesn't actually exist, because it just didn't seem like a sequel would exist. But there was one time I remember, it may have been my birthday. Now, I doubt it would have been Christmas, because I remember being downstairs and my granddad, who used to bring loads of copied PS1 games, he was over here, but my friend Matthew was over here, which he wouldn't be if it was Christmas, because he'd be spending time with his family, but if it was my birthday, then that would make sense as to why he'd be over here, although saying that my birthday was at the same day as his mum's birthday, so maybe she didn't want him coming over, but whatever. But yeah, I opened up this present, I saw it, and we both said at the same time, Poi Poi 2! And we were so happy to have this game. I was happy to find out that the game existed. He was happy that I got it. And so that kind of confirmed to me that he wasn't lying. This game does exist. And so we played a few games and I just tried to get to grips with the new characters and the new level designs. And the way that this game works, and I've mentioned this with the previous entry where I talked about the original Poi Poi, you have this arena, it's up to 4 players, and you have to run around, pick up rocks and missiles and chuck them at each other, and At the end of the round, you score points based on your direct hits, how many of the silver hearts you pick up, and your ranking in the order that you survived, or rather how long you lasted compared to the other characters. And this game did also have the Poi Poi Cup mode, which is the thing that I cared the most about, because I was always really into the whole single player, what would now be called a campaign mode, where you can take a concept of a game that is something that looks like it's primarily multiplayer focused, like with Poi Poi 2, and you can create this single player campaign where you can collect new powers or level up or that sort of stuff. And this game seemed to have a lot more going for it than the first Poi Poi game. Rather than having 3 separate individual tournaments, each with their own grand prize, the way that this game worked is that you had a single tournament that was split up into 2 parts, and this game was actually treated more like a competition where each character would be given a ranking depending on how well they did in each round, and then it would kind of be more like a league than anything else, where you have a load of these separate different rounds, and then at the end it takes whoever did the best, and then they all go into the next stage of the competition until you end with 4 characters at the very top, and they have the final round. And there actually was a level dedicated to the final round, which was very, very tense. And one thing to point out as well is that this game is certainly, absolutely, much harder than the first game as well. Now, I mentioned in Poi Poi 1 that you have these gloves that you can get, each with their own power, and each individual character has their own glove that's specifically dedicated towards that character, but you as the player can pick any glove that you own. That is still true. Difference being is that now, well, there's a few differences, but for one, the characters that weren't in Poi Poi 2 but were in Poi Poi 1, their gloves still carry over, their gloves still exist in Poi Poi 2. But also, different characters have different capabilities with different gloves. So if a character uses a glove that's innate to them, they will have a 100% synchronization rate, as the game calls it, and that means they can do it the most effectively. And generally the way that they try to balance this, I think, is that the characters who had gloves that generally weren't very good in general, their synchronization rate was so much higher than any other character with that glove. So for example, the character Dee Dee has the teleporter glove, where you use it and you teleport somewhere else in the level. Pretty rubbish, but if any other character tries to teleport her other than Dee Dee, they will teleport like 2 steps away from where they were standing. And so there's this higher degree of variation, despite the fact that the gloves don't have these 3 different tiers where they are the same thing but slightly different, like they used to. Instead, this time, each of the gloves have 2 tiers, where it's the first set and then you have the second set. But also this time, in order to be able to upgrade a glove, you have to use it. So it's kind of like leveling up in a way, apart from it doesn't level up, you just have to use it so much. And then once you've hit a certain threshold where you've used it enough, you can then upgrade it, although of course you still have to spend the money. This game also adds much more of a story element to it as well. You will unlock different floppy disks where you will find out different bits of information, and there is also a thing in the wall in one of the rooms, like this lobby, where it talks about the different history of Poi Poi competitions. But because this is set in the future, a lot of the things are looking back at the past, which were the future of when the game was released. So you'll have events saying like, in 2013 this happened, and when this game was released you could say, oh, that's in the future, but now it's in the past. Kind of like that whole Back to the Future 2 thing, where it's like, okay, that's now in the past, so it's strange looking back at that. But the Witch is still there. The Witch will still sell those really powerful gloves to you. Apart from this time, those gloves are banned in the Poi Poi Cup, and there are also extra gloves that you can find throughout the game, but you have to meet very specific requirements in order to be able to find those gloves, which are also sort of like in this top tier banned from the Poi Poi Cup set of gloves. And you still do have the King, who is now called King Callie, who will give you the Emperor glove, which is basically the equivalent of the Meteor glove from the first game. Apart from this time, you have to beat the Poi Poi Cup several times to unlock all the information, and then get to the end, and then beat 3 zombies, and then kill the King, who is a lot harder this time round. You will, on very rare occasion, when entering the Poi Poi Cup arena, find that you can talk to this guy with red hair who will replace the guy who works at the upgrade shop. And if you are playing as a specific character who used to be the upgrade shop guy in the first game, then that changes different events where you can encounter this character with the red hair. Me and Matthew always used to call him the red guy because he always had the red hair and that's all you could see when you could walk into the room. And what he did was he would upgrade a glove for you as long as you had the money, but you didn't need to use it. So I remember we'd go into the room and we'd be like, oh, it's the red guy, it's the red guy. And we're not talking about the cow and chicken character. But yeah, this game I think was a big improvement and it had a lot more stages to it and it was generally harder and it had more variety, like you had team battles and all that as well. So yeah, I really do like this game.